What's up, Fantasy World? Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy's Finest podcast. We're at episode 4. After taking a brief sabbatical, I got a chance to step away and celebrate 11 years with the wife. So we got that done, and now we're back to recording another podcast. Of course, I have my main man, Jalen McQueen, alongside for the recording. Say what's up, man.
Yo, I'm here.
Enthusiastic as always. Okay, this episode, we're going to be getting into our wide receiver rankings. We finished running backs. Now we're going to keep moving forward our wide receiver rankings 1 through 10. Uh, I'll say for me, it was particularly difficult to get my rankings down because there were so many choices. It was just all these guys are they're they're like almost the elite of the elite as far as wide receivers is concerned to me. Especially my top three. We'll get into that as we go to the list. Um, it took me a while. I don't know about you, Jalen, but it took me a while to even get past the first three because they were so evenly matched. It was like pulling hairs almost.
I had a, I mean, I had a hard time with this one too. Um, Reason being is because I had to make a lot of changes with all the news that comes out, all the off-season moves, just hearing stuff week by week. I had to make a bunch of changes and do a lot more research than I planned. So I probably changed this about 4 or 5 times already.
All right, so I'm interested to see where you have which guys you have ranked because I know your list is going to be totally different from mine.
Probably.
All right, so before we get into the main part of our episode, uh, as always, be sure to follow us on all your social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, under Fantasy's Finest. You can also follow me and Jalen at our respective Twitter handles. Of course, I am Hyperion underscore FPH, and Jalen is Ace underscore Game Time 215. Remember too that the podcast is also available on Google, Apple, Spotify, and a bunch of others. So please search us out at Fantasy's Finest. That's PH, not F, and leave us some feedback on the rating system for the podcast on each of those platforms, and let us know how we do each week. So without further ado, before we get into our wide receiver rankings, let's go around the news. Let's go around the NFL first and find out what's been going on in our news segment. All right, first up, we got to go to Dallas, Texas, because our guy Amari Cooper has some lofty goals this year. He's told reporters in a recent interview that he wants to get 2,000 yards receiving in the 2019 season. What do you think?
Um, I don't. I will say this. I love Amari Cooper. I really feel like he is kind of like towards the next. Well, when you want to talk about like Dak friendly, how they making the team Dak friendly, I feel like he fits more so of a Dak friendly team than Dez did. When you just listen to Amari talk, he's humble. He just wants to get better, and I like that about Amari to go alongside Dak. Now, with that being said, I really don't have an opinion on his 2,000 or his goal to try to get 2,000 yards this season. And the biggest reason why is because we haven't seen uh, Kellen Moore call a play. So we don't know how much of a change the offense will go through for him to even get to that number. But I will say, if the offense takes that next step, I mean, you can't be any worse than Scott Linehan. But if it does take that next step, and just going off the games that Amari has played with Dak, I think that's realistic. But Dak has to drop back at least 35 plus times in order to pass the ball. But I do love the enthusiasm from Amari. I do love the fact that he wants to get better, and wants to build that chemistry with Dak. So if I could get a 2000 season, that's freaking amazing. But I gotta see it first. I can't really comment on it. Will, what about you?
Yeah, I like the fact that he's shooting for a goal, but realistically, it ain't gonna happen. There hasn't been a receiver to hit 2,000, I think, ever, and the only person that's been close enough to get to that goal was Calvin Johnson, and he only got a little over 1,900 yards, like
Not
1960,
true.
1960, somewhere around there. I mean, what receiver that's hit 2,000 yards?
I don't think it was hit. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Julio was close. I think he had like 18. Yeah,
That's what
2015. He had basically 1900 yards in
basically.
2015. Well, it was 1871. I mean, it's 29 yards off of 1900. It's 1900.
Yeah, that's not closer than Calvin Johnson.
Well,
So it's
but
not
that is
2,000 yards.
close. You're talking about 129 yards from 2000.
Look, I just said no receiver has hit 2,000 yards. It's hard to do. Amari Cooper is not going to hit that number. If he can give us like 1,500, anywhere between 13 and 1,500, that's golden. But 2,000 yards, if he hits that, I, I don't know. That'll be spectacular, but not likely. All right, moving on. Tariq Hill has met with the NFL for a meeting that nearly took 8 hours this week. Uh, the meeting is probably to interview him over the recent allegations of child abuse that he's been going through with uh, the DA and child services. And there's also been rumors of him getting suspended or possibly getting seeing a suspension from the league. There's a lot of numbers floating around between six, I'll say 4 to 8 games. Uh, it's it's a big deal about him. Uh, Man, it's like where to start with this guy because he hasn't. The league has been dragging their feet in regards to doing anything as far as suspensions, and now it's starting to pop up that they might suspend him for like I said 4 to 8 games. Do you really think that the league is going to do anything? Because they said they've been waiting for the investigations to be closed before they render any decision.
I don't no, I don't think anything's going to happen to Tyreek Hill, especially I think with the pictures that leaked with his wife or fiance saying that she basically set him up, and I'm pretty sure he could use that as leverage. I don't know what to think of the situation, but I don't think anything is going to happen. If it does, I'm going to guess 2 games he gets suspended.
Two games would
It's
be
I just, well, yeah, 2 games is a little, but I mean, if he got a wife or fiance ready to take the fall for it, 2 games I think is it. Now if this was Zeke, he'll be suspended for the whole season. So I just need the commissioner to keep that same exact energy when things like this happen to other players outside of the Dallas Cowboys.
mm, that's another thing. And it's shocking that Kansas City hasn't like given them the boot like they did Kareem Hunt. Now, granted, there was a video involved with Kareem Hunt, him field goal kicking a chick in the face, but these allegations, I'll put it to you like this: I'm not a proponent of players losing their jobs for making mistakes like this, only because it's not like if it's an everyday. I don't know. It's just should there be punishments? Yes. Should he be fined? Possibly. Should he lose his job? I don't know. It's just I know the realm of the NFL is different from the everyday job. I I don't know. I He does need to be suspended. He definitely needs to be suspended, whether the allegations are true or not. So maybe we'll find out something sooner rather than later, because it seems like the NFL is just going to keep dragging their feet until child services is done on their end. All right, moving forward. Reports out of San Fran are that Tevin Coleman looks like the closest thing to a lead back that uh, that's been hitting the field so far during OTAs and minicamp. Um, Jerick McKinnon hasn't been cleared to practice yet, as he's still recovering from an ACL injury from last season. Matt Breida is also recovering. He tore his pec earlier in OTAs, and he's been out. They're saying he's going to be back for training camp, but so far, neither of those two guys have been able to practice, or at least practice in full. And then you have Raheem Morstead. He's more of a, I think he's more of like a special teams guy, and you have Jeff Wilson. Those two guys are on the bottom of the running back depth chart. So, are you buying the fact that Tevin Coleman looks like he's got the job so far?
No, I just think it's the fact that he's the only one that OTAs and minicamp right now, and they have nothing else to go by. But if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the 49ers the same topic we talked about? I believe on like episode was that one or two, where they said they're going to try to use all of the running backs. Didn't they say that?
Yeah, it was more like Kyle Shanahan said that the running backs will. Uh, I wish I had the direct quote, but it's more like the running backs will, the job will come to them, and it'll sort. It was somewhere along the lines of it'll sort itself out with among. They'll sort it out with amongst the running backs, and it was like, huh? Like you're not gonna pick one. You're just gonna let them. Whoever shines the most. Like what is that?
Right.
So it was more along those lines. Um, I, me personally, I think Tevin Coleman's got the job. He was brought in during free agency. He's bigger than Jerick McKinnon. He can pass. He can catch out the backfield. He's not as injury prone as the other running backs on the list, and he knows Kyle Shanahan's system probably better than the others, especially leading into training camp. I think he's got the edge there because he has the rapport with Kyle Shanahan.
Hmm.
And you know, like I said, McKinnon's not cleared to practice yet, and Matt Breida, he's brittle. So I think Tevin Coleman's got the edge. If you're drafting, if I'm drafting, he's my target. I'm looking at Tevin Coleman, and I'm trying to get him around. I think he's going around seventh or eighth. He would be the target to have a nice flex spot.
I
All
think
right.
so, but I mean, I don't think it's. I don't believe anything with the 49ers and their running back, especially if I know Tevin Coleman. No,
Mm-hmm.
not at all.
Calling what is it? Kyle Shenanigans.
That's exactly his name.
Like you
That's
got Bill
exactly his name.
You got Bill Belichick's in New England. You got Kyle Shenanigans in,
Yep.
in the 49ers.
Yep.
Now, speaking of shenanigans, in New York, Daniel Jones is getting a lot of hype the last week. Pat Shermer has said that he hasn't ruled out starting Jones in week one. He's quoted as saying, "You never know what's going to happen." Now, you got to be kidding me with this. After all this time during the offseason, they've been gassing up Eli Manning, saying that nothing's wrong with him. He can still play. He's still got something left in the tank. And now all of a sudden you're gonna start pumping up Daniel Jones, like he can start week one. Like this is just to me, this just screams, you know what? We did pick Daniel Jones sixth overall in the first round. We can't really justify not starting him because he looks like he's a starting caliber quarterback. It's like they're trying to show us like, oh, we know what we're doing, and it doesn't seem like they know what they're doing at all. Like if you got a number one quarterback, start him. Otherwise, why are y'all trying to do the bait and switch now?
I don't- Hopefully the Giants stay the Giants because this is just good news for everybody in the NFC. Just one less team that you got to worry about. The Giants are going to remain the team that you trying to beat at the end of the season, like we did, just to make it look pretty. Because we went from Eli Manning is going to be the starter, and now we're Well, you never know what's going to happen week one. Yeah, we all know what's going to happen week one because Eli isn't special. Eli is Eli. He won two Super Bowls by accident. Now in OTAs and minicamp, you see that he's exactly how the rest of the NFL views him. You got no choice but to start the rookie. And if you start Eli Manning, you're going 3-13 again. At least with the rookie, can know he probably couldn't do worse than Eli. I give him 4-12. But why would you want to keep sending Eli in there to take those beatings? Like, move on with your franchise. They hanging on to the two Super Bowls that he shouldn't even have won. Either one of them. So I mean, they hanging on to that, and I understand. Like Peyton, I mean, Peyton was way better than Eli. You see how the Colts did him? They just threw Andrew Luck in the fire. Why is it taking so long for Eli to get out of the league? I just don't understand. Like, what is so special about Eli Manning that he's like, I really don't want to sit him. Like, no, he's not. He's not good anymore. I don't think he was good to begin with. But goodness gracious, Daniel Jones deserves that. I mean, that's you don't draft a QB that high with if if you still think that Eli Manning is going to be the starting quarterback. You just don't do that.
Hey, I can't argue with that, man. All I know is the Giants look like a really big dumpster fire this season, and I'm here
Or
for it.
or last season, or the season before that.
They
We can
about to
keep
look like a
going.
dumpster fire this season, and I'm here for it.
Right.
But that'll wrap up our news segment. Now we can get right into our wide receiver rankings. So let's wrap this up and jump right into our next segment. All right. Now, what everyone has been waiting for, our wide receiver rankings for the 2019 fantasy draft. Like I said in the outset, this was particularly hard for me. I know you said that you've changed your wide receiver rankings a few times. Uh, I think it got a little bit easier for me after I got past the first three. So let's not hold out any longer. For our number one, or say my number one overall wide receiver, uh, I had to go with Devontae Adams.
What the?
Yeah. Now hear me out. This is the reason why I went with Devontae Adams because I was struggling the whole time to go between Adams, Hopkins, and Julio Jones.
Wait. I'm sorry. I just gotta get this shame off my face.
What shame? What shame? I mean, all right. I hit you with some logic real quick.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead,
Now,
go ahead.
but okay, first I looked at their targets. Devontae Adams only missed one target off of Julio Jones. Adams had 169 targets last year. Julio had 170. Hopkins had 163 targets. That right there kind of tilted towards Devontae Adams coming in for next season. They're all heavily targeted wide receivers. They all have over 95% snap shares in each of their offenses. But one of the things that kind of cinched it for me too was something that Aaron Rodgers said this offseason. He said he wanted to get Devontae Adams the ball even more so than he did last year. More than 169 targets last year? That's crazy. And Julio Jones had 170, and Rodgers wants to even throw the ball to him even more. Like that kind of that kind of upside when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the game. How can you not look at that? And then from there, I went on to look at their target percentage inside the end zone. Uh, Devontae Adams actually had a higher target share inside the end zone than Julio Jones did last year at almost 40% to Julio's 32. And Hopkins, his red zone percentage was 44 to Devontae Adams 40. It was very close. It was like 44.4% for DeAndre Hopkins. and 44.3% for Devontae Adams. So that's like splitting hairs right there. But between the targets, the target shares inside the end zone and the red zone, Devontae Adams gets that edge. And then Rodgers wants to target him more. How can you not benefit from having Devontae Adams? And then Devontae Adams finished fourth last season in fantasy. The other three guys were Tariq Hill, Julio Jones, and DeAndre Hopkins. I don't see how that's a loss. But who did you got at your number one overall?
Before I even tell you who's my number one, I just want to let you know that I have top, or well, we got top 20. Next episode we'll do the 11 through 20. I just want you to know that Devontae Adams is 11 through 20 because
What?
you can't base. First of all, Aaron Rodgers talks a bunch of crap. He's a crap talker. That's what he is. Aaron Rodgers, number one, last season broke a record for throwaways. Yeah, he's targeting, but Aaron Rodgers cares so much about stats that I don't see him throwing the ball to Devontae Adams any more than what he has done. Aaron Rodgers cares too much about his uh, TD to INT ratio. Devontae Adams, and then not only just that, out of all the seasons Devontae Adams has been in the league, just last season was he above 1,000 yards. Other seasons he
Hold
hasn't
on.
even.
Time out. Time out. Before you keep going, I'm gonna save you right now. I'm gonna save you right now. I'm gonna tell you to go back and look because if Twitter gets this, they're gonna let you have it. Devontae Adams has had more than 1,000 He's had more than 1,000 yard season.
I want to
Outside.
give you time to look because he
Okay.
has not.
Oh
And
boy.
before you say, and see, I figured, and for everybody listening to this podcast, I figured Devontae Adams would be in your top 10. I did not think that he would be number one.
I said it was close.
No, it's not close. He's not top 10.
Are you kidding me?
No, he's not. Listen, I could do this all day. Let me read the stats for y'all so y'all can bash Will on Twitter. I mean, 2016 he had 997 yards, but it's not 1,000. It ain't because that's what you just told me, right? When we was talking about what was we just talking about? You know what? It don't even matter. It's not 1,000. We looking at 885, 997, 483, and 446. So last season it looks like a fluke that he even was able to reach 1,300 yards. So just that base alone, how the heck is he number one? But listen, it's your ranking. All right. I'm gonna give you my number one.
Hold on,
Number
hold on.
one.
Somebody messed up my computer.
See, this what happens when you actually do research. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, hold on. You're not gonna try to just come at my neck like that. Okay, you all right. I
listen,
can admit
listen,
that you all
listen,
right. I
listen. Now,
I
if
must have been looking
he
at another
doesn't get the
Devontae Adams.
backlash, if he doesn't get the backlash that I got when I posted my top 10 running backs, then Twitter, I'm unfollowing all of y'all. I'm telling you.
But nobody's
But
gonna. First of all, nobody's gonna say that Devontae Adams shouldn't be at
well,
least in the top 10. You don't even have him in your top 10. You just admitted that.
no, I don't. And I have good reason, or the people that I have above Devontae Adams will, well, it's a good reason on why they're ahead. But let's start with my number one. My
Hmm.
number one, of course, and it should be everybody's number one except the dude I'm talking to right now, is DeAndre Hopkins. How is he not your number one? Number one, first of all, let's start off with saying he has had zero drops this season, Will. 115 receptions, 1572 yards with a 14 yard per catch average and 11 touchdowns. He is virtually unstoppable and has been for like the past 5 years. And the last 2 seasons has been with Deshaun Watson. Before that, you got QBs like Ryan Fitzpatrick, Brian Hoyer, Brock Osweiler, QBs who are average that DeAndre Hopkins has made them look pretty good. And each of those seasons in the past five has 1,000 yard seasons, and you can't game plan for DeAndre Hopkins. You just can't. And it's a first down every time he drops the ball. Like I mean, this dude is unbelievable. And if he is not your wide receiver pick, I don't know who else is. Now, personally, I have had DeAndre Hopkins probably, I think, what about the past 2 or 3 seasons? And he's like, uh, he's going to get you 20 plus points every game. And that's just how it is. It don't matter if they say he's questionable for the game, he's going to play. This dude is unstoppable. So forget about the targets, how many targets. No, let's talk about how many he caught, what he did when he got the ball, and Devont, and doesn't include fluky seasons because the dude I just mentioned has 5 of those seasons straight. But DeAndre Hopkins is my number one.
Okay. Let me let me remind everybody that I said that I was wrong. I did get the stats mixed up. That's my fault. I was looking at something else.
You
But
better stay off
just
Wikipedia, man.
but to say but to say that Devontae Adams' season is a fluke is outrageous when you look at the other wide receivers that have been before him that have built a rapport with Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings. Those wide receivers didn't have one fluky season and it turned into a multiple 1,000 yard season. Devontae Adams he was stuck behind people, but
Okay, but with that being said, but what we go by number one, and if you had red zone like I do, then you can. Well, you don't watch all the games, but you can see. You pretty much can see all the games. And I'm just saying, since 2014, Will he has had 1,000 yard season. That doesn't seem fluke. We just talk about the Eagles winning the Super Bowl out of 52 years, and we say, oh, that's a fluke Super Bowl because the very next year they got bounced, right? How can you
mhm.
not say the same exact thing with Devontae Adams?
Because one he had in 2017, who was there? Jordy Nelson, and then Aaron Rodgers. I believe Aaron Rodgers got hurt in 2017,
I think he
and he
did.
missed the playoffs. So you not only didn't have, and he still managed to score double-digit touchdowns. On top of that,
That's true.
the following season, you get Aaron Rodgers for almost the whole season, and he puts up numbers,
But
1300 over 1,300 yards, and still double-digit touchdowns.
can I
He's had
stop you right there?
double-digit. Hold on. He had double-digit touchdowns the last 2 or 3 seasons.
3 seasons, yep.
3 seasons. So that's not a fluke. Now all he needs to now is the yards, and he's
No,
going to get those because he's gonna get the targets in that system.
the
That's not a fluke.
touchdowns are not a fluke. But to say that he is number one, that's the biggest problem. Number
Okay,
one.
okay. All right, let me do this right now, and then we'll move on to the number two. Who
Okay.
who's a better quarterback, Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson?
Aaron Rodgers.
Boom. I'm done. That's all I got to say.
No,
When you
no,
have a
because
quarterback,
that's not
when you have a
context. That's
quarterback,
not
when you have a
context.
quarterback, the quality of quarterback that you have in Aaron Rodgers and what he could do and how efficient he is with the ball, there's nothing else to be said.
Okay.
DeAndre
Now,
Hopkins is a wide receiver. I'm not taking that away from him. But when you compare what a quarterback does between Watson and Rodgers, Rodgers is going to come out on top. And I'm not saying Watson is a slouch either. I'm just saying clearly Aaron Rodgers is better than Deshaun Watson. He's more
okay,
efficient than Deshaun Watson, which means he's going
okay,
to put the ball in perfect spots for Devontae Adams to succeed.
okay. Now let me hit you back with another question before we move on to number two. So, out of Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long has Aaron Rodgers been playing for Green Bay?
Really? We're going to play that game now?
How long? Wait, how long has Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers been playing for Green Bay together?
I think the last two seasons, 3 seasons maybe, off the top of my head.
So Aaron Rodgers wasn't there in 2014.
No, you said Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. How long
Yeah,
have they been playing together? It's only been
yeah.
a couple of seasons.
Okay, so in those couple of seasons that you just mentioned, how many times has Devontae Adams had 1,000 yards?
Why is that though?
It don't matter why it
Yeah, it
is.
does. Who's been in front
Okay,
of the
wait. Okay, L- last season, Aaron Rodgers was hurt, right? He had 885 receiving yards.
Yeah. Who was throwing
It,
to him?
what's his name? Kaiser.
Mm-hmm.
So 2016, when the Cowboys, well, whatever that Cowboys every met, he had 997. 2015, I don't remember Aaron Rodgers being hurt. I don't think he had 483. 2014, he had 446. And you said last season, well, he was behind Jordy Nelson. You know how many receiving yards Jordy Nelson had?
In 2000 when? In 2017?
Yeah,
How
because you
many?
said he was behind Jordy Nelson. Jordy Nelson didn't even hit 500 receiving yards.
And then didn't he get traded
Yeah, he went to Oakland.
in the middle of the season?
I don't think
Was it the
so.
middle of the season?
No, I
We
think he
got
got.
second.
No, I think he started with Oakland. I believe.
He started with Oakland.
Yeah, I believe he started with Oakland. But my point is, matter of fact, I'm not even mad that you have him in your top 10 because, like I said, I expected it. But to be number one. Listen, man, let's go on to number two. She's gonna make me mad over here.
All right, so number two, for my number two wide receiver, I have DeAndre Hopkins. And like I said, it's not a slight to DeAndre. I just think that the combination of Devontae Adams and Rodgers is a little bit more lethal than Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins. But the reason I have Hopkins at two is because he scored less touchdowns than Devontae Adams last year, but he still had 163 targets, which means he's still going to be a heavily used wide receiver for the Texans. He ranked fifth in targets overall amongst wide receivers. Uh, I just think that he's a freak of nature. He, like you said, he catches everything that's thrown to him. I just think when it comes to offenses overall, the Packers air attack is just more lethal. Will Fuller is with Houston, but he gets hurt too much. He's
True,
hurt every year. So that
true.
means that's even more pressure on DeAndre Hopkins to succeed. And then DeAndre Hopkins plays through games sometimes and he gets nicked up a little bit. So it's not I don't know. I just think that it's close when you compare all three. I think they just get it's it's basically splitting hairs. It really is because they're all very good. It's like, what is it about one that has something a little higher over the other? And that's what I get when I look at Adams, Hopkins, and Julio Jones.
All right. Now before I go to my number two,
You
I
go.
gotta I gotta comment on yours again. This is
Uh,
the thing I think that's that you looking a little bit too much into is the targets because I'm a, this is only about what you do on the field. What the heck does it matter if Devontae gets 170 targets, but catches let's say he catches 90 of them. I mean, it don't matter. The targets that he missed that doesn't matter when it comes to fantasy. It don't matter if it comes to the NFL. I think
yeah,
you shouldn't have used the rank. You shouldn't have used the targets. That's just my opinion.
targets targets equal opportunity. If you're not
That's
getting
true.
targets, you're not getting an opportunity, which means you're not putting up points. Even if you're super efficient, if you're only getting 80 targets, you're not going to be a number one wide receiver with just 80 targets. You'd have to catch you
Oh,
in
I
order
can't
those
wait till
80 targets. Go ahead. What
I
you
can't wait till we get deeper into
All
this
right.
list because I'm going to hit you with some receivers that's going. I'm really interested. This is good though. This is good that our lists are different. This is good. But
Okay.
number
Who,
two,
who's your number two?
Julio.
Okay.
Now, I had a real hard time between putting Julio first or Hopkins first. Julio last season, 113 receptions, 1677 with a 15 average and 8 touchdowns. Now, the same way I feel about Hopkins. This is the same way I feel about Julio. Essentially, um, both are absolute monsters. But the reason I got Hopkins above him is simply because Hopkins scores more. Julio hasn't had a double-digit touchdown season in like 7 years, and that was the only one. Whereas, like that was the only season where he has had double-digit touchdowns. Whereas Hopkins has had 3 seasons with double-digit touchdowns.
Mm.
So, but for Julio, definitely a monster, and he should be, either one or two on your list, because we all know what Julio does with the Falcons and their receiving core, and it doesn't matter how much attention Julio gets, he going to get his numbers. Now, the only problem is with that, like you said, you got to be able to score the football. And out of 17 games, I'm gonna need a little bit more than 8 touchdowns. But what the heck doesn't matter if he's going to give you 1,700 yards?
But see, that's why I can't. I couldn't put Julio in my top two until he shows me that he can score more touchdowns. Because that's the only real knock against Julio Jones.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
He's
like
gonna
yeah. At least we agree with that because that is the only knock against Julio.
Yeah, he's gonna get the targets, he's gonna give you receptions, and he's gonna give you a boatload of yards.
Hmm.
But you gotta be able to score more. And it's weird that they don't use him a lot in the red zone. Like you think
Right.
that a guy that big who can catch like Julio can and who's that dynamic, you think they would use him better or more so in the red zone. Like I know they got Calvin Ridley now, but it's like before Calvin Ridley got there, why weren't they targeting him in the red zone?
I think they were, but I mean, same thing like with other elite receivers. Once you get in the red zone, Julio is doubled, sometimes triple. I mean, but now, like you said, well, really, it opens it up a little bit. Maybe he might be able to score a little bit more. But I'm just saying, since Julio's been in the league, he has had 1 season with double-digit touchdowns. So I don't really think that may be the case. Because all right, let's shut down Julio and we'll let whoever else go off. But the problem is, you can't shut down Julio. You just can stop from scoring. So if he scores a little bit more, let's say he gets you 11 touchdowns and gives you the same amount of yardage, then I mean that's even better season. But like you said, we
Yeah,
got to see him score more.
that's a monster season. Now, I have Julio. I'm not going to disagree with you. I like Julio at number two. I have him a spot lower. I have him at number three. And I looked up his red zone target percentage, his target shares in the red zone, and it's only at 23% compared to
Hmm.
the other two. So that has to go up. And I think that this year it might be that way. Um, well, hopefully it's that way. And the reason I say is because Dirk Cutter is the new offensive coordinator for the Falcons, and he used to be with the Bucks. And I'll go into it a little later about Mike Evans and how he was targeted in the red zone. But I see something similar happening with Julio Jones' target share inside the red zone, uh, kind of similar to what Mike Evans saw under Dirk Cutter while he
Hmm.
was there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Right.
But like I said, it's already been mentioned. Julio is a solid receiver. He's going to get you a boatload of targets. He's going to get you a bunch of yards. I just want to see that if he could score more, he would definitely be a top two receiver, like hands down. In PPR, Julio is a monster. So it's like I said, it's out of those three guys. It's out of Adams, Hopkins, or Julio, whatever your flavor is.
Okay. So for my number three, I have Michael Thomas.
Really?
Yeah, I do. Um, Now I'ma just say, like we said, I'm gonna say this again. I had a real hard time with the rankings. Did it 4 or 5 times, revised it. I actually had him a little lower at first, but I moved him. I think I had him at like about 5, but I moved him up 2 spots. Um, Last season, 125 receptions, uh, 1,400 yards, 11.2 average with 9 touchdowns. Now, the reason why I moved him up, or or why I had him lower, is because of the Saints receiving core. Because Michael Thomas gets a lot of attention, and I think that's why his numbers look how they look. But I mean, they are great numbers. But what separates him from the top two spots, or the from the DeAndre Hopkins and the Julio, is the inconsistency. But I don't think I could blame this on him all the way. He gets a lot of attention, but he also gets a lot of receptions. Or he catches the ball a lot. Last season he started with uh 16 16 for 180 and one touchdown. The very first week of the season, right? He follows that up with 12 for 89 and two touchdowns the very next week, and then follows that up with 10 for 129. Pretty good, right? But the only
Mhm.
thing is, from week 4 to 8, he had less than 90 yards receiving. Then week 9, he had a monster game against the Rams for like 211 yards. And then for the next 8 weeks, he only had one game above 100 yards. So I think he should remain top three. But the only thing about the Saints, like I said, is the receiving core, and that has to get better because I guarantee you, if the Saints have another receiver that steps up, he could possibly top Julio or DeAndre Hopkins. Says he doesn't get hurt. Mike Thomas definitely is a game changer, but you can see the way. Let's say, for instance, when we played the Saints, we doubled, tripled Mike Thomas, and the Saints had nobody else that could produce for them. So hopefully that changes, but it's hard to disagree with the numbers. I mean, he got the numbers. He right there with Julio and DeAndre Hopkins as far as dominating the game. There's nothing you can do to stop him. You seen him against the playoffs and the Eagles. Let's go to the last game. Like he he torched the Eagles. It was nothing they could do. Double team. Like it was nothing they could do. But that's only if other receivers step up to play. So I'm keeping him at 3 until for right now. Let's just say for right now. It might change, but I'm keeping him at 3 right now because I'm expecting other receivers for the Saints to step up.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and borrow a line from Stephen A. Smith, and I don't really like to do this because I don't really care for Stephen A. Smith, but I'm gonna have to say it. Stay off the weed. There is no way in the world. Look, and Mike Mike Thomas is he's a good receiver. There's no doubt in that. He's definitely top 10. He's not top 3 at all. I
He
have I
is.
have Mike Thomas on my list in the top 10. He's ranked 8.
Okay.
Now, he had 147 targets last year. That's 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 like almost 30, 20 some high 20s. He's missing targets from in comparison to the top 3. He got frozen out of the end zone the last 6 weeks of the fantasy season. That means when you needed him the most, he disappeared. Now, if you're in PPR, he might have helped you out. He might not have. I don't know what the score is over for the last 6 weeks. He only scored one touchdown the last 6 weeks of the season. If
True.
I have him on my squad, I'm trying to trade him because there's
No.
no. I don't need. I need production in the playoffs, man. I need production when I'm trying to get to the fantasy championships. Mike Thomas was a no show in terms of scoring touchdowns. Now, if I went over his numbers the last 6 weeks, we'd be able to see where he was at, PPR wise and stuff like that. But that's not good to be. Now he did have 9 touchdowns on the season. That's great,
He
but
did.
he had how many games was it that he had more than 2 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns, at least 2 touchdowns? He scored most of his production earlier on in the season.
Yeah.
That's not good. If I want a wide receiver, now I will say this: in PPR, he's more than likely a magnet. He still gets a ton of targets, and he still has a high catch percentage. He don't drop much,
That's what I'm
so
right now. That's
that's great.
that's one of my arguments. Um, Hold on, but I do like you expect a better season from Ginn, Kirkwood. They got Math. They added in Matthews. Traquan Smith started showing some flashes. I think the Saints receiving core will step up and be able we may see like something like how it was with like AB and Juju. We may see somebody try to fill that Juju spot, but that's hopefully. But even still, I think he
Bro,
top three.
bro, you're
He
putting me
top
to
three.
sleep. You're putting me to sleep, bro. He's not top three. But
Neither
let's keep going.
Devontae Adams not number one. So if that's
Yeah,
the
okay.
case, if that's the case, then we
If you
both got.
put you put Devontae Adams and Mike Thomas in a lineup and say these are the two guys you get to pick first overall, I guarantee you any amount of money they're going after Devontae Adams over Mike Thomas. And,
Wait, wait,
and
wait,
you
wait,
know
wait.
what? You know what? I'm gonna put that on a poll. I'm gonna put that on a poll this week, and we're gonna see if you had a chance to pick Devontae Adams or Michael Thomas, number one overall, who would you pick?
Before we move on to four, let me ask you a couple quick questions. Right?
Shoot,
Who had more receptions, Devontae Adams or
between
Mike Thomas?
I believe Mike Thomas did.
Who had more yards, Devontae Adams or Mike Thomas?
Uh, off the top, I'm gonna say Thomas.
Yeah, no, it's not off the top. That's what it was.
Okay,
Um,
what's the yardage?
Devontae Adams had four more touchdowns.
Hmm.
So
Okay,
two out of the three major stats, Michael Thomas is beating your number one receiver. So I have more of a case at Michael Thomas being number three than you got Devontae being number one.
okay, and the point differential between since you're such a math and numbers whiz, Devontae Adams had 218 yards. I'm sorry. He's had 218 fantasy points last year. Mike
Hmm.
Thomas had 190 fantasy points last year. Now, that might not seem like a big difference.
It's not a big difference, especially if I'm ranking somebody at number three where you ranking them at number one.
Yeah, but that the yardage is going to come. Mike Thomas, that's all he can do.
Wait,
He
time
going to
out.
get you, and even the yardage difference isn't that big of a difference. Mike Thomas had 1400 just over, and
Hmm.
Devontae Adams had 1386.
But who had
So that's
more
not a
though?
big discrepancy.
Who had more though?
Okay,
But
I
wait,
see.
while you're still looking at that, I want to see if I can destroy your point of having Devontae number one. Who had more fantasy points between Devontae, Julio, and Hopkins?
Who had more fantasy points?
Well,
Who had more fantasy points between?
Devontae, Hopkins, and Julio.
Um,
Where is Devontae ranked within
I
that
think
top three?
it's Hopkins, but it's barely a lead. It's like 1 point.
Okay, okay, Hopkins. And what about Julio? Is he ranked above Devontae?
No, he's not.
Okay, well, moving on.
212, 200. Yeah, exactly. Moving on. All right. For my number four, for my number four wide receiver, I got Juju Smith-Schuster. Some people are skeptical about what Juju can do because Antonio Brown's not there anymore. But I think he had enough of a rapport with Big Ben the last season and the season before that Ben trusts him. He got targeted. He saw 166 targets. He only saw three less targets than Antonio Brown did last year. He averaged 18, almost 18 fantasy points per game last season. And now Antonio Brown's not there. Juju's the number one guy, and I think he's gonna see a significant bump in targets this year. He should because Antonio Brown's 169 is gone. So that leaves that target share has to be disseminated between maybe Vance McDonald, uh, James Conner should see some more out of the backfield. Dante Moncrief and James Washington. There, everybody's going to get a piece of that pie, but I think Juju's going to get a bigger piece of that pie coming in for the Steelers next season. And I really like the upside that he has uh, heading into the 2019 season. If he's at if he's the fourth wide receiver coming off the board, I feel comfortable having him as my wide receiver one.
I will not argue with that point, even though I don't have Juju that high. I have him at seven, but I will not argue with anything you just said because that's kind of like my same argument for having a 7. I do think 4 a little bit high, but I won't argue. I won't argue that. Who I have at 4 um, is Odell. And one of the things we was talking about before we start getting into the rankings was how bad Eli was, right? So 4 out of 5 seasons, Odell. Well, Odell, let's just say, we all know he's been playing with Eli, but 4 out of 5 seasons, Odell has put up 1,000 yard seasons, with 3 out of the 5 being double-digit TDs. Last season, he had 77 receptions for just over 1,000 yards, with a 14 average and 6 touchdowns. Um, Now he moves to the Browns with the younger quarterback who we all would agree is pretty good, Baker Mayfield, who has potential to be elite. Um, and the Browns have also a nice receiving core. You got Landry, you got Higgins, and you got even some uh, troublemakers in the backfield as well. So I'm expecting Odell this season to kind of have like a Terrell Owens like year. I'm talking about like 1,600 yards and 15 touchdowns. Like I think Odell has that type of potential. He has, um, route running, check, hands, check, speed, check, quick. Like Odell has all the intangibles to be the best receiver in the league, but I think Eli, is or was hindering him. So now he moves, he get a fresh start with Baker, get a fresh start with a new team. I believe Odell will have a pretty good season. I think he should be top 5 off of that alone. Just the upgrade from the quarterback. That alone should boost Odell higher on on people's fantasy list. And especially with with the news coming out, or with Vegas odds, they have the Browns supposed to be winning that division, and you just talked about Juju in the same division with Odell. Now they got the Browns supposed to be winning, that division. So if that's the case, a big part of that is to Odell. So I can't knock that. I gotta put him at 4.
Um, I I'm fine with Odell at 4. I actually have Odell a little bit lower. I have him ranked 6. Um, and the reason is all those things that you said about Odell is correct. He does have the talent, he does have the hands, he has the speed, and he's just that dynamic. But I think when you switch him from New York to Cleveland, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve because now you have a wide receiver a quarterback in Baker Mayfield who's not afraid to throw the football downfield, but
Hmm.
he has to uh, take the next step in his evolution as a quarterback. Coming from a rookie to a second year, and that could be a little bit of a hindrance because Mayfield is not only getting more of the system to him, but now he has new weapons to deal with. Um, the running game is going to be a little bit different now because now you have uh, Nick Chubb as the number one running back, whereas you had him behind Carlos Hyde half of the season. You
Hmm.
know, how are the targets going to be disseminated between Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and David and Njoku? And like, there's still some things that needs to be worked out. I still think Odell's going to have a really good season, and I think by proxy, um, Baker Mayfield is going to have a really good season. But Mayfield has to continue to trend upward as a quarterback, and I think that'll whether Baker does that will greatly impact Odell Beckham heading into as they get through the 2019 season.
Right.
For number 5, I have Mike Evans. Now,
It's not bad either.
the only every the only thing that concerns me about Mike Evans is Jameis Winston, but
Before you continue, I
he's such a
have
bonehead.
before you continue, I have Mike Williams. I'm sorry, Mike Williams. Mike Evans ranked 6, but
Okay.
it's the only reason why too is because of Jameis. So go ahead. I'm not gonna argue this.
See, Winston's a knucklehead, and he hasn't been very good throwing a deep ball. Um, but with I think there's a lot of hope that Bruce Arians can mold Jameis Winston into a better quarterback than he has been since he came into the league. If Bruce Arians can do that even just a little bit, that might trend upwards. That may trickle down towards Mike Evans. The only thing I want to see Mike Evans do or be better at is inside the red zone. Um, he only saw a 16.3 target share percentage last season. He did catch 9 touchdowns, but that's a little low for a guy like him. He should be getting at least 10 to 12 touchdowns a year. I mean, they have other weapons like they have Cameron Brate, they have OJ Howard, they have Chris Godwin who showed off last year, but Mike Evans should be one of your go-tos in the red zone. And if he's getting doubled or tripled down there, that's one thing. But if I'm Jameis Winston, I'm looking at Mike Evans to score. And as big as he is, there's not going to be a lot of DBs that can handle him. If his target share goes up, he's going to be a problem this year. But I have him ranked at 5.
Okay, so for my five, I have Antonio Brown. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, now this one was kind of a reach, I think, but at the same time, I think it's I think it's hard to keep AB out of the top five. 104 receptions for 1,300 yards, 12 and a half average with 15 touchdowns. But the biggest reason, because I would have had him higher, of course, if he was with the Steelers. But the biggest reason is because the change from Big Ben to Derek Carr. Um, but since 2013, AB posted 11. I'm sorry, 1,000 yard seasons. And out of those past 6 seasons, four of them were double-digit touchdowns. The Raiders don't have the team that the Steelers had before, um, but they still have a pretty decent run game. Derek Carr is still a pretty decent QB, and now AB can focus on him, hopefully. But I believe he should still be ranked top five, but not above the four I mentioned him due to just the change from Big Ben to Derek Carr. I think
Okay.
it's really hard to keep AB out of the top five, in my opinion.
See, now I have him ranked 7th. And the reason is not because he lacks the talent, it's because of the Oakland Raiders offense as a whole. And it starts with Derek Carr. Um, he's shown before that he can deliver as a QB, but he hasn't done that the last couple of seasons,
Right.
and that's what makes me a little bit leery. Plus, the way the offense looked last year, it seemed like it was very short to mid range, and now they've added 2 guys that can go deep. It's if if Derek Carr needs to come out of his shell. Whatever was going on last year, like that he can't play like that with Antonio Brown and Terrell Williams there. Antonio Brown's just too dynamic of a receiver, and he's got a chip on his shoulder this year because I bet you any amount of money he wants to prove that it's not Big Ben and the Steelers offense that made him great, but it was Antonio Brown. Now, if Antonio Brown can somehow make Derek Carr great, that would be that would be great all over the board because now Derek Carr not getting drafted in
Right.
fantasy this year, so he'd
Right.
be a nice waiver wire pickup. But I have it's a new system in Oakland. They're going to make a transition from it looks like to me they're going to be making a transition from the short game to a more dynamic downfield type of offense.
Hmm.
So along with the fact that I think right now Derek Carr is a downgrade from Big Ben. So I Antonio Brown might be due for a little regression this year. I can't see him putting up the same numbers that he put in Pittsburgh. He should still have a good season, but not. I don't think he's going to see anywhere close to the amount of targets and touchdowns that he had last year.
I don't know. It's kind of AB just looking, just going through his career, going through his stats. AB is a Hall of Famer. I don't think any receiver in the history of NFL has put together six straight 1,000 yard seasons. Like I think he's the only one to do that, and it's so hard to rank him or not put him in top five because let's take your list for example. You got Juju four. Well, AB made Juju. Like what AB was able to do, or because of his talent, made Juju even better, made Juju have even more opportunities. So I think they go hand in hand, which is why I don't have them too far off from each other in the rankings.
Okay. All right. So we covered five, we covered six, we covered. Who do you have for your seventh?
Mike Evans,
Okay, I think you did
but
say that.
but I said I like I said I agree with you on everything that you said. I will say though before we move on to the next one, that I do feel like Mike Evans is severely underrated.
I would agree.
Um, most people don't. Most people will go for the five I just mentioned: Hopkins, Julio, Odell, AB. Like but people completely forget how valuable Mike Evans is to fantasy. Like, dude is a monster. He is just as much as a monster as the other receivers we mentioned. But like you said, he's barely existent or he's barely there in the red zone. So we just got to see more of that. But I agree with everything you said. Jameis is the only reason why he's ranked at where he's ranked.
All right, so let's keep going. I think I already mentioned number eight was Mike Thomas. Uh,
Whoa, 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 whoa!
what?
Who did you have for six?
I had Odell Beckham for six.
Okay, that's why we did. But okay, who you got for seven? Because we didn't do seven.
For seven, I have Antonio Brown.
Oh, okay, so there's no reason. And for seven, I got Juju. So there's no reason to even go through ones we already explained. But go ahead. Eight,
Yeah,
eight is cool.
yeah, and I already explained Mike Thomas. Did
Right.
you have anybody? Who did you have for eight?
Eight. I have Keenan Allen. Yeah, Keenan Allen.
Wow,
Yeah,
really?
I do.
Ooh.
Um, this may be a little bit biased, but maybe not. I love
A little
Keenan
bit.
Allen. Um, I also like Mike Evans. Think he is severely underrated for what he does for the Chargers team, and I see him taking a big or taking a big turn next season. The past two seasons, he's been great. He a great route runner. He got great hands. He even thinks that he's one of the best receivers in the league, and he has the potential to be. Um, and the Chargers, where they were last season, I expect them to be a little bit better, especially with this news that just happened that was going on with Tyreek Hill. I expect them to be way better than the Chiefs, and I expect them to take their next leap. But I love Keenan Allen at eight. It may be biased, but I just love Keenan Allen at eight.
I
I
mean,
love Keenan.
that's your pick. I got him. He's not in my top 10.
Keenan Allen top 10.
He's in my 11 through 20. But
Mm,
he's not top 10 to me. I think there's the next two guys you can debate on whether you would have them over Keenan Allen.
right.
My number nine is AJ Green. I think that
You
you
know
have
what?
you have a new head coach in Zach Taylor who came from the Rams. You have him coming back from injury last season. That toe injury that did a number on him. But he's healthy. I think he's going to have a rebound year. He is the Bengals go-to guy in the end zone. I could see him approaching double-digit touchdowns at least because of who they have there. Tyler Boyd is going to show out and help him out too. Um, the injuries, the two of the last three seasons he's had injuries. That's what makes him a little bit more of a risk, and he's a little older than most of the guys on the list. So those are the factors of why I have him at nine. But I think AJ Green is due for a good bounce back year, and he should be heavily targeted this year.
Okay, so my number nine is T.Y. Hilton.
That's not
Um,
bad.
yeah, I mean, with Andrew Luck healthy, I mean, last season he had 76 receptions, just under 1,300 yards with a 17, 17 average, and six touchdowns. I think Ty is one of, if not the best deep threat in the league. And like I said, with Luck being healthy, I see Ty taking a bigger step ahead. Past five out of the six seasons, he had 1,000 yards. But the only thing that bothers me about Ty is he does not score often. Never since he's been in the league posted a double-digit TD season, and he is just not a red zone target. But I think number nine may be like that may be like the perfect spot for him. Like just barely making the top 10, but um, Ty, like I said, I mean, with a 17 catch average, that's big time. Um,
Hmm.
I just need him to turn that more into points. You get a lot of yards, but he don't turn those often into points. So I just need him to also become a little bit more of a red zone target. But outside of that, that's all I got on Ty. I think
All
we may
right.
have the
So
same 10, and I'm going off of your QB ranking.
okay. So for my 10, I have Amari Cooper.
All right, there we go, Will. Oh, cool. Say less.
All right. Now, a lot of people are, and I've just gazed over some of the tweets that I've had with Cowboys fans, and it's been very up and down. But I think the overall thing is that people are leery of is trusting that the offense for the Cowboys is actually going to be better than it was last year. I think that Amari Cooper is going to have a really good year because the offense will be better. It may not be, you know, it may be mid range in the NFL in terms of, I say maybe like, let's say the top 15.
hmm
But considering where they were last year in the red zone, overall passing, getting to 15 or in the mid range is still good
hmm
considering what the Cowboys were able to do with a minimal passing attack last year.
Right.
Kellen Moore should be moving the offense into the 21st century. Uh, Even though the passing offense was kind of bad last year, Amari Cooper still finished as a top 20 wide receiver.
Yep.
He had a 32.1% end zone share in targets last year. That should go up. Um, he's in a contract year. He's trying to get paid. So that means he should show out this year. Um, it's just too many pluses but it's too many pluses, but it's just enough uncertainty because nothing is concrete yet. So I think at 10 would be a nice spot to have him if you can get him as a wide receiver. He may go as a wide receiver two, but he definitely has wide receiver one upside.
Right now, like I said, I agree with everything you said, and I figured Um, I'm not going to give these. I'm not going to give y'all listeners a sneak peek of his QB rankings, but
Ah, don't do
this
that.
kind of ties in to what your rankings. But like I said, ever since he hit Dallas, I mean, or even if you want to go back to when he was Oakland, um, he had a couple really good games when he was in Oakland. Although he took a loss to Denver, he had 10 catches for a buck 16. Then in Cleveland with Oakland, he had 11. I'm sorry, he had 8 catches for 128 yards. Then when he get to Dallas, like the way he turned around our offense, like it went from oh god, we about to go 3-13 to winning the division. Like he changed that completely, and then just being able to have a full season with with Dak and with the Cowboys and Michael Gallup got the jitters out and we got Randall Cobb to even add into the passing. We got Witten back to coach up Jarwin and them boys. Like I think Amari Cooper is about to have a like phenomenal year. He want to have 2,000 yards. Um, I don't like I said, I still don't have an opinion on that, but it's hard to argue against what he did when he came in Dallas. Even that first game against Tennessee, although we lost, you kind of seen like his impact on the game. Although he had 58 yards receiving, he did have a touchdown in that game. The very first game against Philly the next week, he had 10 targets, but he caught 6 of them for 75 yards. Like he changed completely the way the Cowboys run the offense with a new offensive coordinator. I see nothing but like an upside for Amari. Like you said, he could be a good number two, but if you draft him number one, you might take the league by you might take your fantasy league by storm. Anytime a dude gets the ball thrown 13 times and catch 10 of them for 217 and 3 touchdowns, you can't. I mean, you can't do that's phenomenal. Like he alone changed the Cowboys. So I also had him ranked at 10, and I kind of figured you would too. So can't argue with the can't argue with you there.
Great minds, great minds. But that'll wrap up our wide receiver rankings 1 through 10. Uh, Please, after you listen to this episode, let us know what you think. We always like to have feedback from our followers on Twitter, um, our followers on Instagram. We will be posting our our rankings as well on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and feel free to comment. Like I said, we always appreciate what people think and whether they like our rankings or not. And we always like to have the conversation, uh, whether or not people like our rankings. They like, oh man, this guy shouldn't have been this high or that guy
Right.
should have been too low. We always like to have a conversation as to why we have them there in more depth uh, through our social media. So
Yep.
that'll wrap it up for this episode. Closing remarks. You got anything you want to say?
I do. It has
Oh.
nothing related. It's nothing football related. I have a couple remarks actually. All right. The very first thing is nothing football related, but I feel like we got to boycott NBC because they're trying to take The Office from Netflix. So I need everybody to put in this protest because they can't remove that from Netflix. All right.
Why are they trying to take it from Netflix?
I have no I think it's because of the ratings that Netflix is getting just because of The Office alone. That's what I think. Um, but then also, what we got 72 more days before the NFL starts? 72, 73, something like that. 70.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in the 70s. Um, so I want to say I'm done bullying people on Twitter with football related stats until football season starts. No more bullying.
Yeah, you're such a meanie out there, man. I be seeing notifications. I'm like, oh my god, what is going on? I scroll up the thread. I'm like, oh god, it's the Cowboys again. I'm like, even I'm trying to chill. Like, I'm not doing no more beef until like maybe training camp or preseason start.
Right.
Cause I got a lot of stuff to do, man. Like, I got to get these leagues going. People owe me money. We got to get this stuff going for the certain leagues. They want I know one of my leagues they need to pay these fees so we can get
Mm-hmm.
our CBS league back and going. So
Oh,
commissioner's
before I
duties is
forget,
never done.
before I forget, I did say that I would give some props, and this may shock you, to Tony Romo. I did say I would do that on podcast. Cause
Oh, is that from the poll you did?
kinda, but not really. If y'all don't know, if you don't follow me on Twitter, I ran a poll, which Will was talking about, to see who was a better quarterback between Romo and McNabb. Although they have similar stats,
They
out of
don't.
eight, out of 880, out of 888 votes, um, Tony Romo got 88% of that. So
Thank you, Cowboys Nation, for shutting that poll down because that was some hot garbage behind that poll.
it
Trying to be
wasn't.
all biased.
It wasn't. Now it wasn't biased. But what I did now, what I want people to understand on Twitter is, if you go back and look at my old tweets, Romo, while he played for us, I would never go as far as bashing a player while they
Mm,
play for us. Will,
mm,
you know this more than anybody. I don't. I don't hate Romo, but I don't understand the praise that he gets for the team or and all his accomplishments that he has. Uh, that he beat when he only has won 2 playoff games in 10 years. So I just want to let all my Cowboys fans know I do not hate Tony Romo. I actually like Romo. I just don't think he deserves the praise that y'all are giving him. But I
yeah,
promise that I will give him props on our podcast. So there you go, Romo.
yeah. I'm gonna retweet that. I'm gonna retweet that poll because I'm feeling a
Well, let
bit
me go ahead
petty.
and delete it while I'm talking right
Nope,
now.
you better not. I'm gonna screenshot that bad boy. But that is it for our episode 4. We appreciate all our listeners, and be sure to check us out in our next episode where we go over 11 through 20 and finish out our wide receiver rankings. But until then, you guys take it easy.